Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Coach's Corner. Today we are focusing on Southern Nazarene University, which is located in Bethany, Oklahoma, just west of Oklahoma City. It offers more than 60 undergraduate majors and numerous graduate programs with a strong emphasis on liberal arts, business, education, and professional studies. SNU, or Southern Nazarene University, blends academic rigor with spiritual formation and service-oriented learning. The university has around 2,200 students altogether, and the SNU's athletic teams are known as the Crimson Storm. The rugby program at SNU includes both men's and women's varsity teams that compete in collegiate rugby under the banner of National Collegiate Rugby. Both squads are led by head coach Aric Gilliland, who has built the program since their inception back in 2021. The men's rugby team participates in NCR Division I and plays against some of the top NCR Division I and CRAA Division I teams in the country. The women's rugby program has rapidly developed into a competitive squad and a national contender in its own right. Today I'm delighted to welcome Coach Gilliland to spend some time with us. And welcome, Coach Gilliland.
Well, thank you.
It is
Good to
super
see
to
you.
have you here and to learn about your program today. But first, I'd like to learn a little bit about you. Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you found yourself in the head coach role at SNU?
Yeah, my background's a bit eclectic, I guess, but sports always been sort of central to my day to day. I actually played American football here at Southern Nazarene University and graduated a while back now. It sounds like, I guess, 2002. Um, and then quickly discovered rugby. I was sitting around, still felt like I was an athlete and should be competing. And Showed up to the local men's rugby club. And, you know, I'll spare you some of the details of my first training that got knocked around a little bit, but got off the ground at some point and thought, man, I love this. And never looked back. So dove into the game, started learning as much as I could, um, and and training and playing. And not too many years after I was playing, we started coaching. And so coached high school and middle school and little league, and had some success in those areas, and in growing the sport in here in Central Oklahoma. Um, and Spent some time as the president of Oklahoma Youth and High School Rugby, and worked in administration there for several years. And around 2021, coming out of the COVID, SNU was looking in ways to add life and culture to SNU. And the executive vice president, Mike Redwine, was my former college football coach at a different university, actually, before I transferred here. And he pulled me aside when I was moving my oldest daughter in that fall, and he said, "Hey, we've got rugby on the table. You want to come by and chat a little bit?" And we kind of consulted for a few months there. And actually, that conversation had gone on for a few years, but this is when he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, this is the real deal now. So let's talk." And so consulted for a few months, and along the way of that process, I was offered an opportunity to apply for the job. And this is my dream job. I've had other types of jobs and careers, including coaching other sports and teaching in a high school level. And so working with youth and their families has always been a part of what I do. And I just wouldn't, can't imagine doing what we're doing anywhere else. So that's a little bit about how I got here.
That's a great story. I bet your daughter was surprised that Dad was going to SNU again too.
Yeah,
When she got dropped off.
she grew up getting drugged to rugby trainings and never wanted to play. And then a couple weeks after the announcement here, she said, "Dad, I think I'm going to walk onto the rugby team." So she was one of our founders for SNU women's rugby. Yeah.
Wow, so it's a family affair. So let's talk about the rugby program. You are head coach for both men's and women's. Could you give me the whistle stop tour of both programs?
Yeah, so we do have two other full-time staff. Tom Willoughby and Ashley Brooks, and then we have some support staff. And but we all coach both programs, and we love that setup. Sometimes we get people say, "Oh, isn't that hard?" And maybe it's just what we do. We invest a lot into our energy and effort here to grow programs. And if we kind of work backwards, our men made the playoffs this year, and played in a round of 12 against St. Bonaventure, who was the eventual national champion. Our women won the national championship. And so if we kind of work backward from there, our women and men do work independently. They train independently, but there's a lot of crossover. They see each other a lot. It's really fun part of our culture to have one team or the other playing on a Saturday and the stands filled with the other team, that are not required to be there if they have the day off. So, but it's always a kind of a natural thing that happens. We drive by the pitch in the evenings, and both teams are out playing touch together. It's just a real common thing, the way that the cultures develop. We love that. But each team definitely gets their own independent game planning and training time, and that includes everything from time on the pitch to the weight room and travel and all those things. So fortunately, we have a administration and an institution that really supports what we're doing. Logistics can occasionally be tricky, but we haven't had anything that we couldn't handle yet. So if there's anything specific I could answer about how the programs are working or achievements or any of those kind of things, we'd love to talk about those.
Well, let's talk about the what a general week or an ordinary week looks like. But let's start with when your players arrive in the summertime, and when they arrive, what you do when you get them, and then once the semester starts, what training looks like, when games
Okay,
are, what travel is like. Just paint me a picture of that.
sure. So school will start generally the second week of August, or near the end of the second week, or very early in the third week of August. We will report as a rugby program the week before classes start. So in those first 5 or 6 days, we'll do a lot of training. Our goal in our fall camp, so to speak, is to be ready to play a game before school starts. So we'll train a lot, 12 or 13 sessions minimum usually. It's a tremendous amount of fun. It's a bit exhausting. So we'll train 2 or 3 times a day, each of those days. It's a great time. Everybody's meeting new faces, and we're eating a lot, and we have meetings and talent shows and all kinds of stuff in the evenings, and just such a fun time that first week, fall camp. And then once classes start, we kind of get into more of our weekly routine. So we'll play 15s almost every week for the entire semester. I mean, traditionally, so far, we've made the playoffs each year. So we plan on playing rugby until the first week of December. And so each week you can count on a pretty consistent routine. So Mondays, we'll, of course, sometimes there's variables, but generally speaking, Mondays is going to be film sessions, team meetings, a weight room session. And those team meetings consist of, some whiteboard, chalk talk, so to speak, and game planning and review of the last game, all those kind of things that are important for a Monday. And then Tuesday we'll be on the pitch. Wednesday, Thursday, we kind of call those our work days, each with their own specific um, goal and objective, ranging from installation of new plays or set piece, or whatever we need to do to prepare for the upcoming opponent. And of course, sometime during the week you'll have a live session, where it's full contact, and we want to get some pace and play under pressure as well. So all those things are kind of mixed into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, obviously, you take it down a notch, so to speak, in terms of the pressure and the contact and those kind of things, but not the focus, right? So we, captain's run, you might call it. On Fridays, we're traveling, and usually if we're traveling, we may find another university or a nice high school to stop and train on a Friday, and then obviously playing on Saturdays. We work really hard to get home on Saturday, even if we've traveled a ways or we've Got to get home late. We work really hard to get home on Saturday so you can have Sunday off in its entirety, and then start again on Monday.
So, with that travel, obviously you're in the Midwest and there are lots of wide open spaces. Where are you traveling to? How long does that take? And what do you see out the window?
Yeah, so we have such wonderful support from our university that includes monetarily. So we do have a budget, and our department has agency over that budget. Of course, there's approval processes for things like that, but so our job in terms of the budget is to be as good as stewards as we can with the budget we've been given. So our first question when we have a game or competition is, what's the best way to get there? What's the most comfortable way to get there? And what makes the most sense financially? So we will fly to some games, we'll take a charter bus to some games, or we'll take 15 passenger vans to some games, depending on the distance. We have on occasion taken a charter up to about 10 hours away. That's a pretty far charter, but it's manageable. So and not unheard of to break that up into a couple days. So maybe drive halfway or two-thirds on a Friday, play late in the day on Saturday, and then come home overnight or something. I mean, that's just one example, but not opposed to flying to a game. And what a lot of, you ask the question, what do you see out the window? Um, Sometimes people will say, well, especially international students, but also people from maybe on the coast of the U.S., like, what is Oklahoma like? My answer is usually the same. Like, whatever you picture in your mind of Oklahoma, you're going to be surprised. Um, so I actually sent a kind of a survey-ish type thing to some of our students on the team last week, and that was one of the questions: what surprised you most about SNU/Oklahoma? And three of them mentioned the sunset. The one from California, he lives on the beach basically, and he's like, the sunset on the beach is cool, but like in Oklahoma, the whole sky turns all these colors, pink and yellow and orange, and it's really cool to see. So, and the landscape in Oklahoma is very diverse too. Everything from prairies to an open land to hills and mountain plateau. So, no mountains where you can ski, but they are mountains. Not tall enough to,
The
you know.
the Oklahoma Tourism Board is going to have to hire you. You do a really good job selling it. Um, with those games and that schedule that you're talking about, and the coaching team being divided across both the women's and the men's team, what happens when you've got game days? Do you divide and conquer, and some people go with the women and some people go with the men?
Yes, and actually we've been really fortunate that only on a rare occasion have we had to go different directions. So a lot of times they'll have home games on the same day, or there's been times where you may go to another school that have a men and women's team, so we travel both our men and women to the same location, or even if we travel same location but play two different teams. So we've had a lot of success doing that, but not opposed to um, going different directions if we have to. We just all hate to miss any of the games, so um, we don't like to go different directions, but we will, and we have.
There's some careful scheduling when you can do it.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about recruitment.
Yeah.
And when you're recruiting, I would imagine you talk to many, many, many young men and women over the course of each year. What do you look for in a good recruit, and what do you see as a red flag?
So the that's always a kind of a hard question to say, what do you look for? Because I think sometimes people are disappointed in the answer. uh, uh, you know, it's pretty simple sometimes when we watch film. Um, being in the environment we're in is an advantage because we're training every day. We're meeting our officers in the Commons building where they eat and play, pool and ping pong and all that kind of stuff. Like, so we're super accessible. So point of that being, like, we do feel like we can develop players. So we don't have to have 45 players that are all Americans. But what you do have to have is kids that will go forward, kids that will work hard, kids that are good teammates. So those are the things that we put a lot of value on. Yeah, we put a lot of value on all American type kids as well, but but those other things, like we can a lot of times watch a film for even a few seconds and say, oh man, we need to call him or her, because it's like that kid goes forward, that kid is good in contact. Um, we can help develop the passing, we can help develop the IQ, we can manage those things. So pretty simple in the things that we're looking for in terms of film. We love an athlete that goes forward, or that is scanning and making decisions. Um, those things are pretty quick and easy to pick up on. Um, I, I hate this to categorize certain things as a red flag, but one thing I'll kind of answer that in a different way. It's super important to maintain relationships. So even if you're not interested, or if you've and a coach has reached out to you, or especially if you got to the point where you have an offer on the table, it's very important to communicate. A lot of the students may or may not realize is that we know all the other coaches in the country mostly, and if we don't know them now, we'll know them eventually. And it's like you'll kids come up and it's like, oh yeah, he never answered my call either. So it's like, yeah, okay, we'll just mark him off the board. So I hate to use the term red flag, but that's something that I'm not sure that is valued enough in terms of the you know communication lines. So,
I have to agree. It's amazing to me that for such a big country, just how small the rugby world is and how everybody
yeah,
knows everybody. And it's good practice for anything in life. To be polite and follow up and be proactive, and remember that these people are trying to do a job too.
sure.
I appreciate that. So thank you for sharing that. Tell me about your international players and what they bring to the team.
Well, that's an interesting question because I'm not. I mean, the easy answer is a lot of our international students bring a little bit higher IQ um, to the table. But each of our players would bring something unique to the table, whether domestic or international. Um, uh, so I think one that's probably the biggest asset that some of our international students bring is the IQ of the game. Um, but also there's some of the more nuanced parts of the game that are required in rugby that aren't required in a lot of American sports. So, like in American football, you don't have once the ball is snapped and you're in open play, you don't communicate with people. Like you don't have to talk. You're taking angles and you're doing certain. I mean, it's all kind of choreographed. Um, and so some athletes have grown up in the States in that environment. That is not some communication isn't something that they can't do. They're just not used to that part of the game. And a lot of our international students, they come in talking and communicating really well. So it's good to see that. Uh, there's when you kind of compare maybe what an international student brings to what a domestic student brings, they really complement each other really well. And we actually get that kind of feedback from our international students. So whereas the American kids, they've grown up like if you have training, you are at training, and it's 6 days a week, and you show up early, and you are in the right uniform, and if the coach says this, you do that. Like, and so they're used to the regimen that some of our international students aren't used to. But when they come to rugby from other sports, they'll kind of relax and like, oh, nobody's yelling at me, nobody's screaming at me or chewing me out because I made a mistake. And so sometimes an American athlete will let their standard down a little bit, and our international students are not used to that in rugby. And some of that is the way the clubs that they come up in, the American clubs. I don't know if we want to get into this whole conversation, but there's a lot of high school clubs that have mimicked maybe the local men's clubs, but that day and age is kind of,
Where it's more social.
yeah, and that day and age is kind of going away if you want to compete at a higher level. So that's a transition for some of the domestic kids that our international kids don't have to really make.
Sure. Yep, that makes sense. And with respect to, you touched on this a moment ago with if you have an offer on the table. Could you talk a little bit about scholarships at SNU and financial aid for both international and domestic players. I know it's part academic and part rugby. Could you talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So as an athlete, you qualify for academic scholarship and athletic scholarship. Um, just to put in simple terms, most of our domestic students are very surprised when they take a look at the final financials because it's, I venture to say it's generally more affordable at SNU once you've added those things into your um, account than a state school, which surprised people. We don't charge out of state tuition or whether, that's for anybody, whether they're domestic or international, the tuition and fees are the same. And then as a rugby program, we're able to contribute quite a bit towards tuition. So without getting into, too lengthy of a conversation, we do as much as we can is for our athletes as possible. Um, and that's enabled us to field some successful teams and bring in some good rugby players and strong students, and really um, help them as much as we can. And of course, for our domestic students, they also are able to apply for federal aid, whether that be Pell Grant or other types of grants and student loans. And then obviously our international students don't qualify for those things, but we still make a strong effort to help them as much as we can financially.
Great, thank you. And I would think that Oklahoma not being a terribly expensive part of the country to live in is also beneficial because you don't have, exorbitant costs for, you know, Ubers or fast food or
Oh, sure.
anything.
Right.
The
Right.
cost
Yeah.
of living
So,
is less.
yeah, cost of living in Oklahoma is less than many other states in the U.S. But one of the nice things about SNU is that we are community driven, and we could talk a long time about what that means. But generally, everybody that goes to school here lives here. And so housing is there's various housing with some differences in cost, but as you get older, the housing is kind of more independent, like apartment style, where you can cook for yourself um, more often than you could if you were in a traditional dorm as a freshman or second year student. But that is impacted by the cost of living. It's not quite as expensive to run down the street and buy groceries and that kind of thing. So.
Beyond rugby, what do you think are the best things about your college? And maybe you can speak a bit more about the sense of community.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so our motto is purposefully different. So we are different. That is on purpose. And I know that sounds like terribly simplified, but this is an interesting statistic that we've been tracking since for rugby. So 8 out of 10 rugby recruits that visit in person decide to come to SNU. And because there's something about when they walk onto our campus, and they all maybe have a little bit different way to describe it. But I polled 10 or 12 of our students this actually last week and just asked them that question, actually, like what do you love about SNU or what do you love about SNU rugby? And almost every one of them used the word community in terms of the size of our community, but also the connection. So not unheard of for our athletic director or even our executive vice president of the university to even drive a van of players to their game that might not be too far away. But if it's a close game where we might take a van, one of those two guys is driven on not too rare of occasions just because they like to be a part. They like to show their support. But it's also, again, I don't want to take too much time on one question, but if you have an injury, we have a student success office that will email all your professors and tell them so and so's dealing with this week. Can you put their classes online, or please expect them to be a little bit late to class, or if they're not feeling good, they can leave class. And that's just one area of support that we have at SNU. Um, our athletic director took all our women's team to um, dinner a couple nights ago to celebrate their success this season. Uh, Last time I was at the athletic director's office, three of our guys are leaving his office with free t-shirts that he just wanted them to come by and get to know him a little bit and gave him a shirt. Like that's the kind of stuff you encounter on our campus. And it's not, it's just genuine. And that is what makes us who we are. Maybe that's what makes us different. We like, I do want to touch on this because we let every one of our recruits know this, that we do want to train and perform at a high standard. That's the expectation. We're here to be successful and to win championships. But our real job is all those things that happen off the field. It's flat tires and changing spark plugs, but it's also being at funerals with our students when their parents have passed away, or being in the hospital when our players are having babies, or being at weddings when our players are getting married. Like all that stuff happens all the time. And that's what we're really here for. And we love it. And so kind of a long answer for you there, but that is what makes us different. That is what SNU is all about. And we're proud of that.
It's a great answer. And you touched on the word genuine, and that was my personal experience when I was working with the admissions team as a parent. To every single person I talked to, not only were they good at their job, but they were also very genuine. And I felt like they had a genuine interest in us as a family and being supportive. So I think that word that you touched on is, or purposefully different, or however you phrase it, is 100% on point. What can you tell me about Bethany, which is the community around SNU, as well as Oklahoma City, and how far you are from it?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the geography of Bethany without talking about Oklahoma City. So we are literally on the west side of Oklahoma City. So if you're driving west out of Oklahoma City, you probably wouldn't know you were in Bethany. But Bethany itself still sort of operates like a small town. So the actual city of Bethany is pretty small, and SNU sits right in the middle of Bethany, right on Old Route 66. Um, uh, Kids that have grown up watching Cars know that road, right? So we're right here on Route 66 in Bethany, Oklahoma. But the cool part about our location is we're like 15 minutes from anything. Um, like, I mean, there's stores and all those kind of things within walking distance, but you could be watching an NBA basketball game in 30 minutes from leaving here. Like that counts parking and everything. So it's like a 10-minute drive downtown Oklahoma City. It's 15 minutes up to the airport. You could drive 15 or 20 minutes the other direction and be in a rural community. So the location is really nice. So I like to say we're near the city, but not in the city. And you still kind of get the small town feel. SNU's in a neighborhood. We're surrounded by neighborhood houses, except for that main thoroughfare where there's businesses and restaurants and those kind of things. But yeah, great location. It's a safe place to be. We do get that question, like, is this a safe town or safe neighborhood? And it is, and proud of that as well. So.
Great. One last question. You play 15s in the fall, you play sevens in the spring. So,
Yes.
can you tell me a little bit about what that spring season looks like and what your players do who don't play sevens?
Yeah, so we do go really hard in the fall playing 15s. That's just kind of a given. We talked a little bit about that routine. In the spring, we shift focus somewhat, not in terms of standard, but in terms of time, a lot less required. So we will have a big emphasis on strength and conditioning. I run the weight room in the springtime with our other coaches, and it's really a important time, but it's really a fun time to be in that environment, and guys are encouraging each other, and they're getting to know each other in different ways. It's kind of off the pitch, but it's a similar setting. So big emphasis on the strength and conditioning. We will play some friendly 15s in the spring, and we will be building up to our most competitive sevens time that really kind of stretches here and there throughout the spring, but March and April is a very competitive season for sevens. Once we finish the friendly 15s, we'll kind of select a sevens camp, so to speak, and take those guys out and really just, along with their strength and conditioning, focus on sevens. And the team that's not in that sevens camp will be in a skills camp, working their position skills and team skills, in various ways. I mean, that's kind of a generic term, but they're going to keep working on rugby, just not sevens. So
Sure, that's great. And so as that season progresses, you're headed for the national championships for sevens, and you've had experience there before in the past and
yes,
that big tournament. Great.
yeah,
So thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing a bit about your program and Bethany, Oklahoma, and all of the things that make up SNU. So I wish you all the best with this
thank
spring's
you.
tournaments, and look forward to seeing loads of success coming out of SNU.
Yeah, it's good to see you, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.